Morgan Gibbs-White to Manchester City is a transfer that is starting to concern me, in all honesty. But before we get into why he's concerning me, as well as the potential alternatives to Morgan Gibbs-White that Manchester City are being linked with, the likes of Florian Wirtz and Xavi Simons, I'm going to be comparing all three as well, having a bit of a three-way situation, which I'm hoping doesn't turn into one of those awkward situations where two of them are cracking on and having a great time, where one of them is just stood there awkwardly holding the camera. I'm hoping it doesn't end up being one of those situations, but I fear the worst, unfortunately. But Manchester City, Morgan Gibbs-White, let's give an update. Fabrizio Romano, as of yesterday, said Manchester City plan to advance on Morgan Gibbs-White deal in the next weeks, as he remains one of the priority targets. And I think that's a key point there, one of. No issues are expected on personal terms, but work to do with Nottingham Forest. That's Marinakis as well, who doesn't strike me as the type to be the easiest to strike a deal with. As they still hope to keep Morgan Gibbs-White. I'm sure they do. Now, don't forget, all three players are 2 years away from contract expiration, so 2027, all three of them, Morgan Gibbs-White, Florian Wirtz and Xavi Simons. Now, the reason it concerns me is he's not a banker. He's not a guaranteed superstar player. There aren't many of them in the world, but when you're talking about replacing the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, I think City fans want to see a banker, something that's guaranteed. Now, we've signed one of them before, Erling Haaland. There was only one person on the planet who didn't think Erling Haaland was going to be a success at this football club. Only one. And he made a career out of making stupid things, saying stupid things like that. But still, I wanted a banker. Florian Wirtz, for me, is a guaranteed home run, smacked out of the park, any sort of analogy you want to call it. It's a guaranteed, absolute, nailed-on successful transfer to Manchester City for me. Superstar player. But there are, of course, people that forget that Kevin De Bruyne was not a guaranteed success. Because who forgets the idea of what Sky Sports News said? Listen to this. Remind yourselves of what they said.
But De Bruyne, my goodness, Jeff, you know, the world is going mad, isn't it? You look at the amount of money they're paying for this boy, it's just absolutely bonkers.
Chelsea paid £6.7 million for him. Wolfsburg paid 18 million in January of last year. And now we're talking about 50-odd million pounds.
He's a good player, but is he a great player in that respect?
Now, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here because I do have concerns about Morgan Gibbs-White. I feel the concern that most City fans feel that this player is not going to be a guaranteed success at Manchester City compared to the likes of Florian Wirtz. But Sky Sports News, and I'm trying to highlight the fact that people who had concerns about Kevin De Bruyne, and particularly the price tag, 50 million was too much for Kevin De Bruyne as well. Which, again, price tag is going to be another situation because Morgan Gibbs-White, 100 million is the reported price tag. No way. Absolutely no way. One, no way is he worth it. And two, no way will City pay that. Absolutely no chance. Because we spent the whole of last summer talking about, well, the summer before, rather, with Vardiol being 100 million. We ended up 77 million. He's the second most expensive defender in the world. Morgan Gibbs-White is not going to be spent on 100 million. Maguire was 80 million. You know, don't let the United fans forget that. But 77 million for Vardiol ended up being the fee. But all summer, 100 million, 100 million, 100 million, all of a sudden, bang, 77 million. I would argue that City are going to have to lower that down to, I would say 55, 60 for Morgan Gibbs-White, considering there's 2 years left on his contract. I don't think he's worth more than 65 max for me, for Morgan Gibbs-White. 100 million, way too much, way too much. And I don't care about the it's not my money argument because it has massive implications on the football club if you start throwing cash around willy-nilly. Ask Manchester United fans how that's worked out. Florian Wirtz, though, for me, is an absolute banker. Now, he is going to be 100 million and probably over. I would say closer to 110, 120, maybe even 130 for the likes of Florian Wirtz. Now, the latest reports coming around for Florian Wirtz came from Germany, from Florian Plettenberg. Two Florians there. The Florian Plettenberg reporter for Sky Germany, speaking on their new podcast, Mir San Wir. I think I pronounced that right. Florian Plettenberg was quoted in that podcast stating that the current status, Florian Wirtz hasn't yet given his yes to FC Bayern. Leverkusen have not been informed of a transfer request. As of Wednesday, negotiations between the clubs have also not taken place. However, Bayern still believe they are on a very good path. There have been many discussions, many secret meetings behind the scenes. Bayern feel they can get him either this summer or by summer 2026 at the latest, reports Plettenberg, which is, not great news for Manchester City fans. Now, I had loads of City fans come to me in the last couple of days saying, well, there's other news. Speak on the Nabil tweet. Now, I know some of you might be asking, what Nabil tweet? Who is Nabil? What are you talking about? Now, Nabil has tweeted, I'll read you the tweet first. So this comes from Nabil, and then we'll talk about who he is and where he's from after that. No transfer is done. Again, a prefix, a massive prefix ahead of this tweet here. A big get out of jail free card at the beginning of this sentence for me, where he's prefixing it with this might be bollocks, so if this ends up being proven completely untrue, I've at least said that in the tweet. No transfer is done until the contract is signed because decisions can change. Players can change their minds, reps can get involved, etc, etc. However, Wirtz's dad wants him to join Bayern, but the player wants to join City, which is the development here. A big advantage for City. Morgan Gibbs-White effectively done. So who is Nabil and what's his credibility? Why should we believe him? I'm not sure myself, in all honesty. Now, if you're wondering, go to Nabil's profile on X. He is the City Report owner. Now, City Report is a Twitter account or X account, whatever you prefer to call it these days, with 460,000 followers. Massive respect to City Report. It's got to take an incredible amount of work to get that amount of following over a huge amount of time. So big up to City Report, first of all. But my main question is, first of all, why wouldn't you report that information on the big page, on the page with City Report? Why would you report it to your private page? That's my main question. Because if that news is supposed to be respected and to be legitimate, then surely the big page would get the benefits of saying such a thing. Why not post it there as well? It wasn't posted there. It was only posted to Nabil's private account, which raises questions for me as to why. It seems a bit more along the soap opera line. And I mean, hey, it might be proven true. But his dad doesn't want him to join, but the player does. I mean, fly on the wall. It springs to mind. Fly on the wall. Now, the price tag for Florian Wirtz for me is going to be absolutely astronomical, but Xavi Simons is another player that Manchester City have been linked with, and I think the order of priority for Manchester City is going to be Wirtz, Simons, Morgan Gibbs-White. In that order for me, and rightly so, I believe, as well. But the question is, how much is Florian Wirtz going to cost? How much is Morgan Gibbs-White going to cost? And Xavi Simons as well. Not much discussion around his price tag. Well, Florian Plettenberg reported recently stating that RB Leipzig are still set to demand around 80 million euros for Xavi Simons for a transfer of Xavi this summer. FC Bayern, should Florian Wirtz move somewhere else, hopefully to Manchester City, which means we would not be getting Xavi Simons and Bayern would probably move in. So Xavi Simons seems like the afterthought. He's the B plan B for Florian Wirtz for either Bayern or City. Now, I wanted to look at the comparisons of these three players rather. We're having the old three-way here. Now, let's have a look at how they actually perform. This is domestic stats, you can see, okay, because I don't think it's fair on Morgan Gibbs-White to include European football when Nottingham Forest haven't been playing football. But this is domestic stats over the previous 2 seasons. So, I mean, Leverkusen, 2 years for Wirtz and 2 years for RB Leipzig and Xavi Simons and 2 years for Nottingham Forest. So it kind of worked out to cover 2 years, to be a little bit fair and have a bigger spectrum of football to analyse the two over. Starting with the attacking stats, you can see green makes you the number 1 in that particular field of stat. And orange, you finished second. Red, you finished third. Yeah, you're holding the camera a bit here. Morgan Gibbs-White, aren't you? Sorry, mate. Attacking-wise, yeah. There is no Florian Wirtz on the planet right now for me. I mean, for me, he's absolutely the number 1. Comfortably ahead in the per 90 stats. All of these are per 90, of course. Goals and assists per 90. Smashing it, Wirtz. Shot creating actions, yeah. Brilliant from Wirtz. Passing accuracy. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne has low passing accuracy. I need to remind you of that, of course, because he tries to play the audacious pass. But Morgan Gibbs-White has been playing more of an 8 than a 10 this season. He's definitely dropped deeper. Forest played defensively. So we will be looking at the defensive stats in a minute as well, because surely he succeeds in that department, right? Right? Key passes per 90. Yeah, Wirtz. Progressive carries per 90, Wirtz. Take-on percentage. He's an absolutely sensational dribbler of the football. His feet are lightning. Absolutely lightning. So let's have a look at the defensive stats where Morgan Gibbs-White should be dominating. He ain't. He ain't dominating. Tackles 1 per 90. Wirtz is beating them all. Like, fuck's sake. Get the camera out, Morgan Gibbs-White. Just watch Xavi Simons and Florian Wirtz do their thing, mate. Nah, mate, I don't want to throw too much disrespect at Morgan Gibbs-White here, but let's get it straight. He is absolutely third priority here. So let's not glaze over the idea that Morgan Gibbs-White, oh, he's going to be brilliant, he's going to be fantastic. Compared to Wirtz and Simons, no chance. No chance. He's nowhere near their level. I'm sorry, it's just not. He's a great player, by the way, Morgan Gibbs-White. Fantastic. And he'd probably go up a level in a Manchester City midfield. But he's nowhere near the level of Florian Wirtz and Xavi Simons. Not a chance. Nowhere near. Interceptions, he's ties with Xavi Simons. He's got the same exact per 90 interceptions as Xavi Simons, and Wirtz finishes third. Clearances, well done. He's winning in that department. And it's the only one he outright wins in clearances. And again, I think that's because Nottingham Forest tend to sit deep. You know, they're on the edge of their own area for the majority of the game. Even against mid-table opposition, they tend to defend and hit teams on the break. That's the style of the football. So he's going to pick up more clearances. Blocks per 90. Most of those were pass blocks, not shot blocks. I must give Morgan Gibbs-White a bit of credit here because shot blocks, he actually is top of the list, and it's just rounded up. I've added them together, passes that have been blocked and shots that have been blocked. But combining the two, Wirtz wins overall. He's blocking passes. So that suits City's style. Counter press, preventing the ball from coming out and getting into a position where the opposition can go on the transition. What a rhyme that was. Position, transition, opposition. God knows where that came from. Lyrical, mate. Recoveries per 90. Simons is top of that list. And Morgan Gibbs-White is bottom of that list as well. You would fully expect someone with his energy to be top of that list or getting closer than that, you know, but he's not, because the other two have higher energy levels. They are more high-octane players than Morgan Gibbs-White. I think it's a no-brainer for me. Aerial duels. Wirtz gets smashed in this one because he is a bit on the shorter side compared to the other two. He definitely doesn't like getting up and winning an aerial duel, but still, for me, it is a no-brainer. I would be very disappointed if Morgan Gibbs-White ends up being this Manchester City main target for the summer, if that's the main player we're going for. I think we're going to sign Xavi Simons. I think that's who we're going to end up with. That'll be my bet. I would love it if we end up getting Florian Wirtz, and I hope that can happen. I will just take the news that you hear with a pinch of salt, and just because it suits your agenda, Manchester City fans, and what you want to happen, doesn't mean it's true just because it suits what you want. You know, you have to factor where it's coming from, the source, the credibility. You know, so I am concerned. I still am concerned, and I would hope if we were to sign Xavi Simons and Morgan Gibbs-White, I think the two could complement each other. And the fact that if we could get Morgan Gibbs-White down to 55, 60 million and spend around 60 million on, maybe even 70 on Xavi Simons, and spend roughly 130 million on the two of them, we'd probably have to spend close to that alone for Florian Wirtz. So financially, it could be better to sign two players out of the three here for around the same fee that would cost Wirtz. But doesn't that just show you the highlight, and highlights the value of Florian Wirtz? He costs that much for a reason, because he's an absolutely sensational talent, and the whole of the footballing world knows it, and there's no point pretending otherwise. It's a huge concern for me, but still, I think you'd be a good signing, Morgan Gibbs-White, as long as he's not the priority. You're expecting this player to replace the likes of Gundogan or Kevin De Bruyne or Bernardo Silva. Not a chance. He's not that level. I'm sorry. I think he'd be a fantastic addition to the squad, and that's about it. What do you think, Blues? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up Silva.